Welcome into the Important Nonsense Podcast, 32 teams in 32 days. It's the Cleveland Browns. I hate doing this show every year. Um, it's I will say this year will be a little bit more palatable. It's gotten better over the last few years. Historically, these shows were always a slog to get through because you had nothing to talk about. At least the new look Cleveland Browns are a little bit more palatable. And not to bury the lead, but joining me again, Mr. Jason Draven at that FF Nerd. Jason, I know today we are going to get the opportunity to talk about one of your favorite players, particularly in the wide receiver room.
Oh,
So yeah, I know you're excited. And continuing his perfect attendance record at Mike Burland. Mike, how are you doing here?
Good. I think I'm a little more excited than you are to talk about the Browns. I think they
That's a very
have some
low bar.
intriguing options. That's for sure.
I'm historically not excited to talk about Cleveland or the Cleveland Browns or their ownership or Jimmy. Well, I'm more excited to talk about Jimmy Haslam, but that's mostly what a dirtbag he is. And you would think that would be slanderous, but I would defend that in court. Much like Jimmy Haslam has had to defend himself in court. Google Jimmy Haslam pilot Flying J, and you will learn exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe add voucher to that in the background. It's a fascinating business story. But we are not here to talk about the trials and tribulations of the embattled owner of the Cleveland Browns. We are here to talk about fantasy football. As such, all of the projections and rankings that you will hear, well, aside from our own that we do ourselves, the base all comes from Fantasy Pros. We are a Fantasy Pros affiliate and are happy to be there. Thank you, Fantasy Pros. We appreciate all the statistics and insight and giving us a lot of things that we can tools that we can use to manipulate stuff to make it our own. And then all the depth charts come from Player Profiler. Shout out to Jack Kavanaugh. Jack, hope you're well. Love your work as always. Within that, 12-team PPR as always. God's format as it really is. This is all redraft focused. We'll, I'm sure, sprinkle in some best ball and 2 QB and dynasty nuggets like we always do. But by and large, what we're here to discuss is redraft. The theme of this show, as ever is to help get you prepped up for the 2023 fantasy football season, where we go team by team and break it all down for you. As such, let's get right into it, gentlemen. Quarterback, it's Deshaun Watson. Year 2 of Deshaun Watson, not obviously of his career, but with the Browns. Very embattled situation in the background that we are not going to get into the legal side of this or any of that. We're just going to go ahead and say last year was a weird year for Deshaun Watson. Feel free to Google why if you care to learn more. This year, a lot of that baggage has been removed. Not worrying about any of that stuff. He's projected to play the whole season. He's the de facto. He will be the starter. So this year should be a little easier to kind of unpack a lot of both himself, but a lot of the skill position players. Early results are this. This is what this translates to. A full season of Deshaun opens at QB 9, translates to roughly 86 overall by rank, ADP of 79. So he's going a little bit ahead of his ranking, which I think would be justifiable given what we've seen Watson do in the past. Honestly, I'm kind of meh on this whole thing. I'm kind of meh about it. He had a very bad year last year, and I realized a lot of stress off the field, didn't get any kind of training camp, kind of came in cold with the team, just thrust in. The whole situation was less than ideal, let's say, as it relates to him and his production and also the production of the team. This sounds about right for Deshaun Watson, but I go back to my argument of, I mean, realistically, what you're talking about there is a 7th round pick for Deshaun. Be about that? No, it's not. So that's probably a little.
I think it is 7th. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be a 7th round pick. It would be a 7th round
yeah.
pick for Deshaun. That's about where I'm willing to entertain. I'd say start entertaining quarterback. At that point, I'll think about it. And he doesn't give you as much rushing floor as you would think. So he's not really a Konami code guy. I mean, if he was, he'd be drafted a lot higher in the 7th round. I don't know. I'm
every time he's had a full season though, he's been quarterback 5 or like That's his thing. That's his ceiling. Every time it's quarterback 5.
So Jason, I'll go to you then. So that's what's so maddening about this. That's a decent value on Deshaun Watson when you bake in historical averages. So talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the fact that every time he's had a full season, and it was with the Texans of all teams, that he was quarterback 5. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't think it changes here. I mean, at what they have him at QB 9 right now.
9 is where he opens. Yeah.
Which
as of July 22nd when we're recording this.
And honestly, let's say just not counting injury whatsoever, you're going to say that the worst. What do you think the absolute worst he can be? I want to say quarterback 15. I don't see him.
Okay, you beat me. It was out of my mouth was going to be 15. Would be the floor, the absolute floor, the basement.
At that point, you have a QB1 for your team that is. I mean, more often than not, I bet you.
If he was in the basement, then no. But I get where you're going. Go ahead.
And so you have him there in the 7th round, and you've filled out your one quarterback position. So, and then you can pick off the waiver wire anytime he has a bye or isn't feeling well or whatever, because he is on a Brown, so he has to drink a lot of Pepto to survive there. But it's just one of those things. You got to make sure that upside of him being a QB5, it's hard to overlook, because especially with the weapons that they've gotten him, I think this is one of his better receiving cores. Has a really great running back. They have a lot of the right things to keep this team very interesting and keep it offensively moving. So a lot of pieces here that are definitely interesting to me for fantasy purposes, especially.
Yeah, I agree. This is where I start to look at quarterbacks. If there's someone that I think is has value and is slipping right around late round 7, round 8, Deshaun Watson can be, like Jason said, the top 5 quarterback. I mean, it was just his last full season. The guy led the league in passing yards, threw almost 5,000, over 4,800 passing yards. And I just don't see that just disappearing. I'm not judging anything whatsoever. Last year, I mean, you just can't. You can't judge on what he did last year and say, oh, that's what he is now. There's just too many factors coming in at week 12 or whatever it was. And he's not a Konami code at the quarterback position, but he gives you a solid, over his career, 30 yards rushing, 3-ish points of coming from rushing. And last year, he did the exact same thing. In his 6 games, he averaged 29 yards rushing. So he's going to get probably 500 yards rushing, which is something, So
not zero.
Combine that with his ability. He doesn't have to do that, and he could still be a good quarterback because he can throw the ball very well. So, and like Jason said, I think this is his best supporting cast he's had around him in his career.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're getting a discount because of the poor performance last year is what I think this is translating to. But it sickens me to think how many Deshaun Watson shares I'm actually probably going to have, because I'm right there with you, where given historical averages, given the idea that you're getting a discount from the bad performance last year that we don't necessarily think is going to repeat this year, given
people not liking him, people having ethical issues with him. I have some of those. But if you're willing to just throw all that away and just go purely analytics with it, what the analytics scream at you is you're getting an extreme value. It's he should be going significant based on all the crazy ADPs we've been going through over the last couple of days on quarterbacks. He should be going way higher. This is one of those things where you sometimes just hold your nose and you do it. And it's not I don't view it as a comment on anything other than that. It's just, if you're trying to win your league, this is the kind of thing that can really help you win your league. You're getting a baked in value at quarterback where everybody else is overpaying. You can get a top 5 guy in the 7th round. Yeah.
I hate it, but facts is facts and math is math, and math don't care. And facts don't care about your feelings. So no, it's not my favorite topic, but I think we all agree Deshaun Watson represents a significant value and is someone, as long as his ADP stays in the 7th, 8th round, someone you should be targeting in your drafts. I'd be punting on a lot of those high-priced quarterback options we've been going through the last couple days
and circling Deshaun Watson on the page, because your worst case scenario is, like you said, Jason, 15. Your best case scenario is 4. And if he was going at 4, we're watching people pay up for Joe Burrow in the 3rd round. I'm getting 4 rounds of value. I can't leave it on the table. As distasteful as I find this, it's
you have three running backs and 3 wide receivers, or you have 4 and 2, or whatever your breakdown is, and so you have a full team.
That's how I like to build my teams.
Get a good quarterback to go with it. You're set.
Yeah, you're building out a significantly improved lineup. So and obviously his backup is Josh Dobbs. Shout out to Josh Dobbs, by the way.
Dude,
that guy just keeps plugging along. You'd think he'd be out of football by now, but nope. He just keeps getting those contracts, and I like Josh Dobbs quite a bit. He actually also, like, University of Tennessee, he has an aerospace degree, so he actually has something to fall back on. It's kind of funny. It's like, that's the guy who just keeps getting jobs. Like, so he is the Dollar Tree Deshaun Watson, 100%. I get why they went that way. Similar to yesterday, when we talked about running back, we have another good running back to go through here. And also, this is going to be very quick, because what is there to say? It's Nick Chubb. Still there. Everybody loves Nick Chubb. Especially now
with more opportunity.
Well, especially now with Kareem Hunt playing elsewhere at some point, theoretically. Currently, well, hopefully for him. I could care less.
Well, I mean, a lot of people are, the running back room is getting iffy with all these people potentially wanting to hold out. So it's one of those things that jobs are there, and he could.
Yeah, if you're willing to scab.
Yeah,
you're willing to be a scab. Yeah, go ahead. Given how Kareem Hunt was playing, scab might be the most appropriate way to describe it, because it was ugly. Nick Chubb, though, not ugly. Nick Chubb has been fantastic the last couple years. Totally get the hype behind him. This year, much of the same. Coming in as the RB7. That's largely because he doesn't catch that many passes. Put a pin in that. We're going to come back to it. Translates to about number 7 overall-ish. It's a little hard to pin down because of how the wide receiver thing we were discussing yesterday props up this argument this year. But broadly speaking, you're talking about a late first-round pick. His ADP is 14. Top of the 2nd round. That's probably a little lower than what I'd be willing to take him at the back end of the 1st. You know what I mean? But 14, I get it with some of the additional wide receivers that people are targeting this year. But it's Nick Chubb. You know what you're getting. 1,000-yard rusher. All the opportunity you could ever want on a team that likes to run the ball, that runs the ball in the red zone. He does catch passes. The knock on him historically has been Kareem Hunt comes in to do that. And Kareem Hunt gone. Kareem Hunt not there no more. So what do you guys think?
Touchdowns. I mean,
yeah, Mike, I'm going to go to you here real quick. What do you think? Does that translate? Does Kareem Hunt leaving translate to more pass catching work for Nick Chubb?
It should. Although I will say that when Kareem Hunt has been hurt the last couple of years, they still work in guys like Dearness Johnson kind of the same way. But I'm hoping that this is the year of Nick Chubb's best year. I think he could be a top 3 running back. If they can get him to that 65 to 70% snap percentage, historically, if you go back and look, that basically means you're guaranteed 40 catches because of dump offs. You're going to get a couple dump offs a game because you're just in there all the time. If he can get to that snap percentage, which I think he's only done that once in his career, I see him catching 40 to 50 passes. And, they showed that they were kind of near the end of the year, the last 6 weeks or so. I think if you average his snap percentage, it was right around that 65%. So I'm all in on Nick Chubb. I think this offense could be pretty good, which means the touchdowns can be there. And like Jason was saying, it wasn't just Kareem Hunt was the pass catcher. They would basically do a 50-50 split, put him in the red zone if they wanted. It wasn't Nick Chubb getting the goal line carry. It was Kareem Hunt getting a lot of goal line carries. So I think that's hopefully all going to go to Chubb. So, yeah, I agree with you guys. Back end of the 1st round, I think he can be a top 3 running back.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for me is just the additional touchdown opportunities. The fact that Hunt was taking away 4 or 5 touchdowns every year, and that equates to an additional 30-ish points for fantasy. And not saying that's a massive amount, but it kind of makes him
at the top end. It actually matters when you're ranking players. I know what you're talking about. I couldn't necessarily give all 4 or 5 immediately to Nick Chubb, as we know that's not exactly how that works. But I do get the general the vibe you're putting out there. So Chubb is Chubb. Back end of the first round, love it. Like he'd be
Probably taking it.
If Chubb is my number one, my RB1, I'm happy.
If he's my first pick and I'm in that first 12 picks, I mean, from let's say I'll probably go 8 on, I'm willing to take Chubb.
Yeah. And if I was picking at the back end and I could actually get him at 14, like let's say I'm picking in the 11 hole and I could get somebody like a really solid wide receiver, I mean, I'd be fine with that. Like I might actually go Chubb first just to get the running back and then hope the wide receiver wraps. But you're in a good spot either way at that point because you're going to get 2 really quality players. With Hunt leaving, it does open the door to the backup. I do believe that you should be drafting, if you're going to go with Chubb, you should be picking up Jerome Ford. He, in all likelihood, will be the handcuff. The Browns appear to be very high on him. It's basically free. He's the RB 58, translates to about 175 by rank. So that's like the 15th round. His ADP is 166. I think that makes sense because if I'm the person rostering Nick Chubb, I'm willing to spend a little bit more, reach around early just to make sure I get him because we've seen that they will work in a second running back. And Dearness Johnson, mentioned by Mike, is a good call. Should bring that up. Dearness Johnson, not only is Kareem Hunt gone, Dearness Johnson is gone. So Jerome Ford finds himself in a world where the Browns really want him to be the RB2 for their team. I think he could have a little bit of work on his own, but if something was to happen to Chubb, I would really want to already have Ford and not have to blow half my fab budget in season to do it. This is one of those situations where I would want to do it. There's only one other running back of note, and it's Demetric Felton, and he was terrible. So I'm not interested.
Catching guy.
Yeah, I'm not interested in Felton. And you can have Felton off the waiver wire anyway. He has no ADP. It doesn't matter. He's not relevant. It's Chubb and Ford. And I do we agree? Should handcuff? Maybe not a must handcuff, but I'd say a should handcuff.
Yeah. And there's the value of what if they use him like they kind of used Dearness Johnson and Kareem Hunt. So
that's part of it.
Yeah.
I have him getting 100 carries. So, I mean, that's a pretty good amount for a backup.
Exactly. Not nothing. The wide receiver room. The wide receiver room has been a tire fire for a long time in Cleveland. Not to be confused with the actual tire fire that burns in Cleveland periodically. Google that too, by the way. Like, yeah, I'm not, again, you might think that's slander. I'll defend it in court. Like, it's not slander when I can defend it. Returning once again to anchor this room, Amari Cooper. Like a bad penny. Just won't go away. Just keeps coming back. I actually don't really have an issue with Amari Cooper. I think the rumors of his death have been greatly exaggerated. And the ECR seems to agree. Opening for him, he's the wide receiver 17, translates to about 32 overall. I will say that's a bit rich for me. ADP is 40 overall. Closer, not something I'm interested in. I'm just not even going to bury the lead here, guys. At that relative price tag, I'm out. There are other names in this room that I would be more interested in. And if you're talking about at that point, the top of the 4th round for Amari Cooper, there are other wide receivers I like more. There are other players I like more in the 4th round for Amari Cooper. I am out. I'm walking away. I'm going to, if I have anything else of any other options, I have Amari Cooper in my personal rankings like a full round later. I am not interested in this, and it's because I just don't trust him. I have a trust issue with this. He has a tendency to disappear in this offense. Historically, he's not even Deshaun's favorite target. They seem to get along okay, but I'm out. And Jason, I'm seeing a lot of nodding, so I'm gonna go to you because it seems like you have some opinions here. But that's my general consensus. Is I'm gonna let Amari Cooper. I'm gonna let somebody else deal with that at that relative price tag.
Yeah, I mean, he is a wide receiver 1 for his team, but it's just, God, that's so expensive. it's hard to trust somebody that, like you said, can very easily just not show up for a game and with no reason not to. I mean, you see him open on routes and he's just like not being looked at. So, and the fact that they've brought in a couple weapons, like I'm kind of curious to see how this all ends up, and it's interesting that he's going that high. I guess it's the fact that everybody's expecting this foot forward for Watson, which also means.
But then
nearly.
We'll get into that. Why would it not then lift the ADP of the guys we're about to talk about? That's what's fascinating to me.
Because everybody only thinks it's a wide receiver one. So he's just going to focus on that one guy who is his guy. And I'm like, that's not really his guy, though.
No, his guy is a guy we're going to talk about in a second. And that I think people have completely just are ignoring. Because they're distracted by Amari Cooper and then the shiny new toy that we're also going to talk about. Mike, what do you think? Are you willing to get in bed with Amari Cooper in the top of the 4th round? Is that what you're thinking?
I don't hate it. I'm not super excited about it. It kind of depends on who else is around there. I mean, you look at it, Amari Cooper, top 3 of the last 4 years, he's been a top 15 receiver, 2 of those top 10. Last year he was. You kind of know what you're getting. The guy's going to give you probably 1,100 yards. He's going to give you 80 to 90 catches, and then touchdowns are hard to predict, but you hope he gets eight touchdowns. You know what you're getting. Doesn't excite me, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it there because I still think he is. There's room for multiple guys to flourish on this offense, and I can see Amari Cooper, even if he's not the number one target, I can still see him putting up, the 1,000, 1,100 yards that he always does.
I could see it. I just feel like I'm drafting him at his absolute ceiling.
Yeah,
and that's what I don't like doing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm 100% committing to Amari Cooper at his ceiling, at where he's being drafted, and I just don't like it. I see there's no real immediate road that I see to him exceeding 1,100 yards and being able to get above what you're having to pay. Because that's what he would have to do. He'd have to get to like 1,300 yards or score some extra touchdowns or something like that. I'm just not in. I can't. I hate paying sticker price. It bothers me when I have to do that. And there are other guys, like I said, that it's like I'd rather wait if I could avoid it. I will say, Mike, I do see your point. He's got the pedigree. He was a top 15 guy 2 of the last 3 years. I get why the price is what the price is. I just hate paying retail, man. It just drives me nuts. And the other thing with that too is, the odds that he would finish under that are, I think, a lot higher than him actually like breaking out and going above it at this point in his career.
I agree with that.
So, but I do see what you're saying, where you're talking about, like, I don't hate it. I wouldn't be confused by it either. I'd be like, yeah, sure. It's like what it costs. It's just, for me personally, it's like, I don't want to pay for that. I'd rather a guy later on this list, to be honest. But not this guy. We referenced there's a new face in the wide receiver room. Elijah Moore, former Jet, now with Cleveland. Opening ranking, people don't seem to know what to do with this. Opening ranking, wide receiver 49, translates to about 110 overall. His ADP is 114, so the ADP is largely in line with that. This confuses me. Can someone explain this to me? Like I'm 5? I'll wait.
Hype train. That's all I can say. I mean, the news coming out of Cleveland is that they want to be able to use him in multiple ways, including out of the backfield. So that's always one of those things that
maybe he's Kareem Hunt.
That I don't know. Very well. I mean, without Hunt, that's just kind of why it's interesting. Is because both him and the guy that I like more can do the same kind of role, and they can line up anywhere and kind of do the jet sweep or do an easy toss and just take it for
the guy you like more. Good night, everybody. That's it. I'm out of here. Tip your waitresses.
Oy vey. Yeah, but I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the targets end up actually breaking down with the wide receiver rooms in particular, and even more so where the touchdowns go. That'll be a very determining factor on fantasy points, especially. But Moore is probably not the answer you want in him having to come in and build a rapport and all of these other options. What's his ADP?
You're talking about
I
a
guess his
ninth round.
ADP.
You're talking about a 9th round pick. Is what
I'd
you're
much
talking
rather
about
go-
here for Elijah Moore. Roughly 9th round pick is what you'd have to invest to get in on that.
Yeah, but I'd rather go on with the guy later.
We're gonna get into that in about 30 seconds here. I would too. Mike, Elijah Moore doing it for you?
Kind of in on Elijah Moore. I just have this
All right.
feeling like he's gonna return the value there. Don't have to invest too much in him.
I agree. 9th round pick is not earth shattering.
Yeah, and here's the story. He was a rookie, and like the typical rookies, it took him about half the season to start coming on, and then he had a stretch where before he got injured for like 6 games where he was like a top 5 receiver in PPR. And everyone loved him going into the next year, and then it was the show that is the Jets with Mike White, Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco. Obviously, there was some kind of issues
It's
there.
a specific kind of show that we can't say that word on
Yes,
YouTube. I appreciate you
almost did.
self-censoring, but it's a very specific kind of show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent.
And he got out.
Yes,
and
yes, an excrement show. That's fine.
Yes.
We'll allow that. That's a technical
Yeah.
term. We can go with that. Yes, historically, it has very much been an excrement show. 100%.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is the Browns.
God,
God,
I thought
I got
my
it.
joke was bad.
I got it. That was a good one. You
Oh
hater.
my God. All right. Well, until tomorrow, keep up the nonsense because I'm wrapping this up right now. Remember that guy we've been teasing? We're not doing it anymore. Jason ruined it. We're going home. I'm ending the show. You don't get to know about your valuable wide receiver pickup.
But just to finish it up,
I don't know anybody who laughs harder at their own jokes than Jason. Like look at him.
I'm laughing more at the reaction from you.
Okay.
Oh, God.
but in on Elijah Moore. I'm in on him. I think, again, everything going into last year, I still think he has it. And does Deshaun Watson really have a rapport with anyone? I don't even think he was allowed to. Was he allowed to practice when he was suspended?
Oh, I think he has a
year?
rapport with someone. Like, there's a defined someone I think he has a rapport with, and it's coming up.
I mean, he played 6 games. He played 6 games. Was he allowed to practice? I don't remember last year.
He was allowed to practice. They did
Okay.
let him in about 3 weeks early for practice, so they didn't send him in completely cold.
So, to me, it's not like it's the guy that's been here for 5 years, and you know what I mean. Like, there's room for Elijah Moore to be the guy on this team. So I think he has the talent. But we'll get into the next guy.
I'm not debating the room thing. I think there is room for this team, given how much I project for them to throw to support 3 guys, even potentially. I don't even have an issue if you want to take a shot on Elijah Moore in the 9th round. It's not for me personally. But I get it, especially if he does start getting the jet sweep thing and the little bit of that Kareem Hunt role. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but that's a weird narrative I've been seeing going around on the internet. That's why I'm bringing it up. We'll see how that actually pans out, when the rubber meets the road. I just think that people are really sleeping on Donovan Peoples-Jones. If there's anything I'm excited about in the Browns wide receiver room, it's DPJ. He proved last year that he deserves to be considered. He was a total afterthought. He was a waiver wire darling. All year, DPJ was a wide receiver 3. He was a wide receiver 3 last year by all rights, and that you could have off the waiver wire. He has a real rapport. He was Deshaun Watson's favorite target. Like that's what I think is very confusing here is, yes, he had some weeks where he would disappear. I understand that. But given what you have to invest, this is where your upside is. All the upside in the world with DPJ. Wide receiver 60. At least he's being drafted this year, Jason. He wasn't even being drafted last year, so this is an improvement. I realize that, like, it might be like, what do you care about? Well, he was on the waiver wire all last year. At least these people are smartening up, at least to this level. Wide receiver 60 translates to 144 overall, ADP of 159. Oh, man, that's like 14th round pick. Like, I am in on this because if you want to talk about, I think this is I'm much more interested in this than Elijah Moore. He's the down the field threat. He was the number 2 passing option for them last year. I still think he's the number 2 passing option now, even with Elijah Moore on the team.
Yeah, the issue for Elijah Moore is really actually David Njoku.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, to be honest, that's his issue.
I guess
if they didn't have
that
that kind of
David Njoku, DPJ would actually be the third passing option on this team. I will amend my previous statement. That's a good call.
yeah, that's
I will
the
amend
only
that
issue.
statement slightly. That's a good call.
Because
Cooper, Njoku, DPJ still for me. That's the way. That's the pecking order. I forgot. Good call.
I mean, and that's why it comes down, because while Cooper is the one, DPJ is a deep threat, then you have the guy in the middle that is battling between Moore and Njoku. And I think Njoku is the rapport, the better, I mean, unfortunately, the better player, more talented player for the Browns, and he's just been so consistent when he's there. That's the issue for him, is that he also gets hurt a lot. So, but DPJ at that value, great value, definitely going to be taking that pick more often than not, and just that dart throw, it's worth it to me.
Stash him on the
100%.
end of my bench just like I did last year, and he returns wide receiver 3 value. It's too good of a deal to pass up, especially when at that price you could still cut him. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong and Elijah Moore takes it over, right? I've lost nothing. It makes no difference to me. Whereas if Elijah Moore is bad and I'm wrong, I've burned a 9th round pick, which is where I'm looking at getting like a quarterback or something that might actually matter for my team, right? Still in the 9th round, those picks still matter.
Yeah, an upside pick.
14th round, I don't care. Throw it in the trash. Like, it makes no difference to me. What have I lost? I've lost nothing. If I'm right, I have a legitimate flex option. And we learned this last year. Even with Deshaun, no matter who the quarterback was, DPJ, he earned the trust of that coaching staff, and I think of a lot of the quarterbacks in that room, and ultimately Watson. I'm sold on this, and I think people haven't caught up to it yet. That's part of why I'm less interested in Elijah Moore. I don't want both. And if you're telling me I got to spend a 9th round pick to take a dart throw on Elijah Moore that maybe it pans out, maybe it's good, I'd rather deal with something that I know a little bit more about. Whereas DPJ 5 rounds later, for what I think might actually be the number 3 pass catcher on the team over Elijah Moore, much more inclined to wait and target him. They still have a few other guys, David Bell, Cedric Tillman. None of that matters. Yeah, none of that, Jakeem Grant. None of that matters unless a series of injuries was to happen. As far as the wide receiver goes, it's those 3 guys. I do believe all 3 of them should be drafted. I just would prefer Elijah Moore 2 or 3 rounds later. If I could get Elijah Moore in the 12th, I would be a lot more happy about that. I still wouldn't want both on my team, by the way, guys. I think we all agree on that. Like, if I'm going Cooper, I'm also probably just going to stick with Cooper and not get involved in any of this other stuff. Don't get multiple Browns. Like, that's probably not a good call. Maybe DPJ because it's so cheap. And if the board fell a specific way, maybe I'd be inclined to do that. We'll talk about the honorary 4th wide receiver here. Probably actually more like really the honorary wide receiver 2. David Njoku. You want to talk about something that Deshaun Watson did seem to have chemistry with in the sample that we saw? It's this. This is the real conversation. When healthy, David Njoku is a target monster. He's supremely athletic. And most importantly, he was Deshaun Watson's favorite red zone target. And it's not close. Donovan Peoples-Jones was making his hay down the field. Amari Cooper was in and out. Like, he does wide receiver 1 things. Njoku was who was getting the ball in the red zone when Watson was under center. That's what's attractive here. Here's the problem from where I'm sitting. David Njoku, tight end 10, translates to roughly 100 overall. His ADP is 97. It's a little early for me to want to take a tight end. Even though he is going to get red zone work, I would much rather wait and do my normal strategy of getting like a Cole Kmet later on, a few rounds later, and just not worry about this. But I do understand the theory craft behind this. It's not confusing to me, given the red zone targets. Is anybody going to pound the table for David Njoku? Jason, you already kind of started with the...
Yeah, I mean, just because of the fact that he is, of all of the players, I do think he has the best report and is the most consistent. His downside is clearly injury, which always makes me nervous for that, and the fact that, as you often like to say, it's tight end. So
that is historically the argument. It's tight end. It's Kelsey. It's Andrews. Then I don't care. And why pay a premium?
Yeah, and so at that price, it's tough for sure. So I understand where you're coming from, but if you're looking at getting tight end around there, that's probably who I'm going with.
I'd rather a Pat Fryermuth, but I do understand
Better quarterback play.
I
I mean that's what it comes down to right there.
can't argue with you about that. Mike, what do you think about David Njoku for this season? Where do you land on this as we kind of round out the Browns here?
Yeah, I like Njoku a lot, but like you said, it is, I think it's too rich for my liking. In that 8th, 9th round range, I'm just gonna wait on tight ends. He's not enough of a difference maker at the position, unless he has to catch a lot of touchdowns to kind of be that difference maker, in my opinion. So I'm just gonna wait. But if you do want to take him,
you're talking about a 9th round pick. Yeah, you're talking about a 9th round ish pick. Like,
I would say one thing. I know this is a little off topic, but if you're gonna take someone in this range, like I think Evan Ingram's going like 2 rounds before Njoku, and it just doesn't make sense because they averaged like basically the same amount of points last year. So
people love Evan Ingram because we'll get there, but the Jacksonville show is going to be interesting because it's all over the freaking road. From my preliminary digging into it, people are Evan Ingram is going to be one of the more polarizing figures that we will cover, because there are some folks who are way in on it, like pushing their chips all the way in the middle of the table, and there are other folks who are like not with a 20-foot clown pole. And I think the not with a 20-foot clown pole people are the tight end haters again. Hi. And also the Evan Ingram been burned by you many times, my friend. Like learned my lesson like years ago on this. I think it's a lot of the newer people that are looking at Ingram and it's driving it up, and I'm not touching that mess. Give me a value at tight end. Give me a Greg Dulcich in like the 14th round. Like give me something like that. I'm not paying retail for that. People are out of your minds. But that really wraps it up, man. Cleveland, a lot easier to do Cleveland this year, guys. Last year, the Cleveland show had to go last. We usually go alphabetically. We had to take Cleveland out and put it all the way at the end because it was such a disaster. So this year, a lot easier, a lot more cut and dry. Glad we don't have to dance around some of the topics as much this year. They should be better. That division's a nightmare.
Well, they are projected 9.5.
Yeah, but it's like they'd be higher if they didn't play in that division, probably. Cleveland, Baltimore, Cincinnati, like all of those are like playoff teams. Like
and
that's
all,
and
all over 8 wins right now is what they're projecting. So
yeah, and it's like poor Pittsburgh. Although you would say that, but I don't feel bad for Pittsburgh. They've won so much historically. I could care less. Like enjoy your rebuild. But yeah, that really kind of wraps it up. I mean, final thoughts. Deshaun's a value because of all the baggage and because of all the weird hype train around quarterback this year. Somehow Deshaun's a value as we sit here on July 22nd. We'll see if that stays the way that it is. If it does hold, I'll probably have a lot of Deshaun Watson shares because even though it's a little early for quarterback for me, that does represent a tremendous value given what other people are doing. Chubb and Ford, great tandem. And then really, I'm probably not going to roster Amari Cooper or Elijah Moore at all, given their relative price points. But I'll have a lot of Donovan Peoples-Jones shares, and I know Jason, you and I are going to be in agreement with that. You and I have some weird overlap this year with T. Higgins, the DPJ, and a few other guys we'll probably do later. We definitely have some. You and I normally don't have that much overlap. This year, it's kind of weird the way that that's working out. And then David Njoku's being overdrafted. So you got some values. You got some. It's the Browns. It is what it is. It's relatively straightforward. Jason, take us home, man. Any final thoughts on Cleveland, on the mistake by the lake?
No, I mean, it's what it is. You just kind of have to take your medicine and just sit with it, because that's your best value is to take what's there and let the board fall to you. So it's probably going to be DPJ and Deshaun and just clearly in the first 12, 14 picks, Chubb. Outside of that, you're probably leaving that team mostly alone. So good luck.
And then Mike, take us home, buddy, as we get ready to sign off, not just for this show, but also for the day.
Yep. Actually, basically like the value of all these guys except for probably Njoku. So it's an interesting team where they have some good fantasy options and they're not too overvalued basically at every position. So I am interested in the Browns this year. I think they're going to potential to be a top 10 offense.
Couldn't challenge you on that at all, Mike. I would not be sitting here with my mouth hanging open if the Cleveland Browns was a top 10 offense, given the weapons they have. Quibbling and nitpicking aside about specific individual players, I agree with the general supposition for sure, where it's like, yeah, overall in the whole, top 10. I could see it.
Pretty good O-line, decent defense.
Yeah, exactly. If they were in an easier division, they would be they wouldn't be a 9.5. They'd be a 11, probably 11.5 if they were played somewhere else. But yeah, with that, in the listening audience's world, we will be back tomorrow, and my ability to do the alphabet is completely failing. Yes, we will be back tomorrow.
Dallas?
To talk about Dallas. Yes, to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? It has been a long day, and my brain is fried already. And this is why we don't do. You've been noticing, if you've been watching these in sequentially, that I've been drinking coffee. It's the entire time, because it's 8 a.m. on a Saturday is when we started doing this, and it's about noon now, and my brain is cooked. I've got nothing left in the tank. So with that, we will see you tomorrow to talk about the Cowboys. But until then, keep up the nonsense.
I'm Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, and you can find all the guys at ImportantNonsense.com. Kaboom!